phenomenal.
Hmm.
Oh, that's a high compliment. Thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah, yeah. It was great.
Well, I
We're
was
gonna
blown
get
away.
some really good feedback from this.
Nice. Well,
Yeah,
I meant what I said. I really appreciate what you guys do. I do listen to most of your podcasts, and you know, I think it's so cool that so many different people in this industry now have an opportunity to talk about what they do, get excited about what's going on, learn about different. I think when I was coming up, I didn't know anything about anything outside of the places that I worked. So it's so cool what you guys do.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Turf Today, growing the future of golf course maintenance. Turf Today is recorded on the Superintendent Network and is brought to you by our friends at Toro. My name is Adam Kershane. My co-host is Brian Laurent. This is episode number 98, folks. We are almost there. We're doing 100 and then we're shutting it down. No, I'm just kidding. We're just getting excited for number 100 because we got some fun stuff planned for you guys. Today, couldn't be more excited for today's conversation. We've got a really special guest joining us, the Director of Golf Course and Grounds at Castle Pines Golf Club, Scott Pavalko. And Castle Pines, as many of you know, played host to last year's BMW Championship, and Scott was at the helm, making sure everything was ready to go. Scott's journey through the industry has been a fascinating one, starting out working for his old man, moving through iconic venues like Muirfield and Cog Hill, and ultimately landing at one of the premier clubs in the country. This is truly one of the most insightful interviews we've done. Scott brings a ton of knowledge, a clear passion for profession, and some great stories along the way. He's a strong leader, a great communicator, and someone I think everyone in the turf world can learn something from. So we hope you enjoy this interview right after a few words from our friends at Toro. Turf Today is proudly brought to you by Toro. Toro helps you maximize efficiency with autonomous options for mowing and more, freeing up your staff for other duties. Take the GeoLink Autonomous Fairway Mower. It builds on the proven eTriFlex platform to combine trusted performance with advanced autonomous tech. There's also the Turf Pro for roughs, capable of handling up to 18.5 acres. And don't forget about the Range Pro for ball collection. Learn more at toro.com/golf/autonomous. Toro, always solving, always evolving. Been a busy.
right. Yeah, throw in a trip to Toronto and goodness.
Yeah. Trip to Toronto was great. You know, it was a bit of a down and back. We're so busy with everything else going on, but I was able to get down there for some morning maintenance and getting to meet a whole bunch of people on the crew. You know, everybody was very welcoming and, happy to see me there and got a whole bunch of great stuff on camera. The course was beautiful. It was a big, big course. I'd always
Yeah.
thought, I'll just go down and be able to walk around and take some video and stuff. And 4 o'clock in the morning on a golf course you don't know on foot is exciting. Let me tell you.
That's everything wants to kill you at
Oh
that
my
time of
gosh,
day,
yeah.
right? In
Yeah,
a
it
place you don't
was
know.
so like fortunately there were a few people that offered me rides, which was very, very generous. And the lighting from the grandstands and some of the infrastructure and stuff certainly helped. But those first couple hours you're out there with headlights and just trying to figure out where everybody is or where everybody's going because I wasn't really in the mix the rest of the week. So it was just trying to figure it out. But I feel like I kind of saw everything, got to see all the different machines and practices and everything happening out there. So it was really, really nice experience. I'd like to do something like that just on a bigger scale or maybe a longer stay, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, careful what you wish for, buddy.
It'll be coming. Well, I'm looking forward to that stuff.
Good.
The tournament is it's so cool to be on the grounds of a golf tournament, whether you're working there or you're just visiting or volunteering or whatever. It's special. It's something everybody should get to experience, whether you're just spectating or you're actually, putting your hands on the turf.
Yep. No, it's great. Always a good experience. I mean, it's the pinnacle of golf, right? When you're hosting a tour event, it's the best players in the world showing up at your golf course, So it is. I mean, obviously daily maintenance is great and everyone puts a lot of hard work and takes a lot of pride in what they put out there, but all of a sudden your work showcased on TV with the best players in the world, it's another level
It's
of excitement. I'm sure you felt it when you were in the meeting room and all that kind of stuff. Just the energy and the buzz. It's you just can't replicate that.
No, it's so high level, right? Everybody kind of brings their A game. Everybody's working hard together. You don't really see too many people messing around. Everybody's got their task. And what I liked about this crew was it didn't seem like anybody was rushed. Didn't seem like anybody
Yeah,
was panicking. Everybody was out. You always talk about that rinse and repeat. So this was Wednesday, right before, Pro Am and the tournament starts. So I think everybody was pretty much dialed in and just was enjoying what they were doing and
yeah,
making the most of it. So it was really peaceful to be out there and see it all and kind of see the transition from the dark to okay, now it's 9 o'clock and then people got golfers have teed off and there's people everywhere and the sun's up and stuff. It's just such a big difference. So getting
yeah,
to be there at 4 o'clock in the morning or before the sun comes up and see what happens on a golf course is special. It actually made me
yeah.
think, why not offer something like that to a group of people? If you have special passes to the golf tournament or maybe you're playing in the pro am or something like that, why not do a special experience where you could go out before the sun comes up and actually maybe park yourself on one of the holes or be near an area where you could actually see some of this maintenance go on? Wouldn't that be kind of like a cool thing to add or part of an experience?
It would be, but I don't know too many people that would volunteer to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning just to watch a bunch of people mow a green. If you're not in this industry, it may
Yeah,
look cool,
yeah.
but when that alarm goes off at 3 o'clock in the morning, I don't know. I don't know too many guys are going to pay 20 grand to play in the pro am and then also wake up and go watch all that stuff
Yeah,
that
I
early.
guess you'd have to be a hardo, right? You'd have to love it.
You've got
But
to be a diehard, man.
yeah,
You got to be a diehard.
yeah.
If there's some mimosas or Bloody Marys or something in the mix, then
Maybe,
too,
maybe, yeah.
possibly. But yeah, those would be true golf sickos. Our audience are the guys that appreciate it, so they love seeing that stuff. I mean, I helped with a couple different experiences for other industry folks where they've come out and they've just kind of been a fly on the wall for morning meetings and then walk around morning maintenance just to kind of check it out. But they're part of the industry. They're learning something that they can take back to their facilities. But just general Saturday, skin game guys, I don't know. I don't know.
That'd be early.
That'd be tough to entice them to want to pay to come out for an experience to watch, guys rake bunkers and mow greens at 4 a.m.
Yeah. Well, you'd have to
Just
work
my
with,
perspective.
for sure, you'd have to work with the crew to be able to set that up and, okay,
Yeah,
we're all going to go to this hole at the same time that has lights so that these guys can see what we do. And we'll take 15 minutes to cut the
yeah,
hole and check everything and water the greens and stuff. And you just kind of beef it up for 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, something like that,
yeah.
just for a little
Well, that's what
experience.
we're
But
here for, Adam.
you're
That's
right.
what we're here
Hey,
for. We
yeah,
take
that's
the
right.
videos that way they can watch it and they don't have to wake up and do it.
Yeah. You
We can
just
show
wake
them
up
what it's
and
all about.
watch it from bed and roll over and go back to sleep.
That's right. That's
There you
right.
go.
Yeah, just watch a quick reel and oh, that looks cool. All right, move on. I don't want to
Moving
get
on.
up that early though.
So how was Palm Springs? Must have been a good time.
Yeah, yeah, another, quick trip. Probably was in California for maybe 36 hours or so, but it was good. Yeah, nice little project going on at a course called the Springs out there. So they're kind of going. It's a Desmond Muirhead golf course out there in the desert. They're kind of getting it back to its roots. So yeah, spent a day out there doing some renovation footage for them, and then hopped on a plane, got home last night, and then getting ready to pack up and go to Cincinnati for some kids lacrosse, and then you could probably hear my laundry machine running behind me, but
Nonstop right
change
now, eh?
change a bag out and go to Oakmont.
Nice. Which is something you've been
Yeah,
waiting for a while now, right? That one's been
yeah, so
circled
excited.
and yeah, probably a
Yeah.
lot of people going down there.
Oh man, it's gonna be. Yeah, I mean, we've talked to a lot of these guys. A lot of these guys are going to be there that we've had on the show that are part of that network, and so yeah, it'll be nice to see guys. I mean, a bunch of guys coming in from California and Texas, and couple guys from Ohio, just all over the country. New York coming in. I mean, you name it. I think he said he's got 200 volunteers coming in. So
Oh my
that's
goodness.
that's massive,
That's yeah.
massive.
Is that like record breaking? 200 volunteers on
It's
top of how many
Yeah.
he has already, right?
It's
Like,
the yeah, so I'm waiting to get there to get clarification if it's 200 people on staff. I've seen 200 people like on the crew before at a US Open.
mhm,
Uh, but if it's 200 volunteers only, that's a lot of volunteers, excuse
it's
me.
getting up there.
Yeah, yeah, that's when you start running out of stuff to do, and it's like, all right, you walk behind everyone and make sure everything looks good, and
Yeah.
just you go get my Speedway coffee, okay. I'm on it, Mike.
One of the things I heard at the Canadian Open the guys were doing was it was instead of doing everyday split shifts, they were doing every morning and then kind of splitting up, half coming back each night. But I
Yeah.
guess what was happening was guys didn't want to miss. So everybody was coming back for a lot of the shifts, which is so cool to hear and see,
Yeah.
right? It's just like we can't keep these people out of here. They're not supposed to be here, but they keep coming to work.
They've got a credential, so they're going to be here.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. They don't want to
absolutely.
miss anything and they take so much pride in what they're doing, right? So it's like I
Yeah.
don't want someone else doing that or we don't want to miss
Yeah.
anything. Like I want to be
Well, and
there. So
they don't want to miss that time with the people too, right? I mean, they spend the morning with their crew and they start getting to know them, and they want to come back and hang out. And if you're visiting from somewhere else, what else are you gonna do?
mhm.
Sleep? So,
Yeah.
yeah, man.
You
Oh
know what's
yeah.
something else that hit me too? I always think about bunker raking being like, lower down on the list and stuff. And if you go to the tournament, you're a bunker raker, maybe you're not doing something as important. Those guys had more fun than anybody on
Oh
the golf
yeah.
course. You put them
Yeah.
all together, they get to ride together, they're all get their headlamps and stuff, and they're all working together. Like that's being on the greens is fun and stuff, but that would be
Yeah.
enjoyable, especially with people that
Yeah.
you've met, you're getting along with, you're having a good time with, you're spending maybe you're having a few beers and then you go back to work the next day. Like that would be awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
got to we got
And
to get
it's
maybe some
usually a
sand.
big crew too. It's, that's the
Usually,
one
yeah.
thing. Yeah. A bunch of guys. They had 17 at the memorial, which was pretty decent size. But that's one thing that, the bunker crew captains always talk about. The bunkers are always the second most criticized part of a golf course, right? The greens are always number one.
Hmm.
The bunkers are typically number two. Maybe you might be able to say rough from time to time in there, but bunkers are always heavily criticized. So that's an
Hmm.
important job. My son's been on the bunker crew the last 2 years, and I keep reminding him of it. I'm like, dude, those things are really important. If someone gets a crappy lie in there because you did a bad job raking it or something, that could cost them $1 million. So you gotta,
Absolutely.
yeah, you gotta make sure you're paying attention to the details in there and doing a great job. So, and I know all the tour officials spend a lot of time looking at every single bunker, making sure they're all properly raked and ready for play. So yeah, it's a big job, and it's a cool, the camaraderie with the bunker crew is always pretty unique.
Yeah, no, they're definitely having a lot of fun, and they
Yeah,
leave
yeah,
those things. They look like works of art. Some of them
yeah,
it's dark and they still have lights posted near them, so you go by and it's just a bunker with lit up, and it's just perfect, right? The rake's
yeah,
perfectly placed. All the teeth marks are right through the sand and everything. Like the edges are money. It's just yeah, it's a little detail, but it goes a long way. I
yeah,
know our last episode we talked about the tee blocks being lined up and how important that is, and some of those edges on the golf course, some of those fine details and different heights of cut and stuff, like, man, it can go a long way. So,
yeah,
take
yeah.
pride in those details.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I'm pumped to get over there next week and check it all out. So by the time this next episode comes out, I'll be on site and
Hmm.
get to experience what it's all about over there. It's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah. And the pictures I've already seen coming out of that
Oh my
place, like,
God.
it's going to be so dialed in.
Oh man.
It's
Yeah.
gonna,
Have you seen the stuff on social media with some of the players going out there and dropping balls in the rough? I mean, it
yeah.
looks hardcore.
Hmm. Then you can see
It
the boys
looks.
they were hand mowing the rough too. And,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a classic thing every year. People like to talk about it, but it's, well, like I couldn't hit a golf ball out of that stuff. I wouldn't know
No,
what to do. Like, do you take
no.
a lower iron? Do you try and wedge it out? Like, I
Oh
don't even
yeah.
know what you'd do with something like that.
Yeah, man. When it buries down, you just get that sand wedge out and just bump it back out into the fairway. There's nothing
Yeah.
else you can do.
There's
You're
nothing
not
that,
going to be able to get a hybrid on it. You're not going to be able to get a long iron on it. Take your medicine.
yeah,
That's
take
it.
your
That's
medicine.
it.
That's why those guys are
It-
so good, right? Not missing the
Yep.
fairway and stuff. Man.
Yep. It could be carnage. I mean,
Hmm.
it could be. That's all going to be weather dependent. But hope I haven't looked at the forecast yet. So hopefully Mike and the team over there get some good weather. Scott,
Scotty.
Brian,
what's going on, man?
Good. Adam, how's it going?
Not
Nice to
too
meet you.
bad. Nice to meet you too. It's been a while now. We've probably had a handful to a dozen people come on the show and recommend that we have you. So it's crazy that it's taken this long to get you on here, but we're very fortunate to have you.
Well, it's nice to be wanted. Thanks. Yeah, I
It's
appreciate you guys
great.
having me on. How's it
Yeah,
going?
man. Oh, it's great. It was great to see you last week for maybe like 2 minutes, but
That's
it was
more like
awesome.
it was five.
Yeah,
Long
maybe,
enough,
maybe.
long enough for me to down a Buckeye donut.
That's right. Which one did you go for? Did you get a Buckeye, the actual Buckeye donut?
No, I didn't. I got this I don't know, I had some kind of cream cheese icing, and like halfway through I was like, this is a mistake. And I finished it, and it was a mistake, but it tasted pretty darn good. So
Yeah. Well, but on the bright side, you went and walked the entire golf course, I think. So you at least
that's
burned those
true.
calories off.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Was that your first time back post renovation?
Yeah, I think I told Chad embarrassingly, it had been a dozen years since I had been back at Muirfield Village. The last time I was there was during the President's Cup, which anybody that was around knows that that was a quite an unfortunate event with weather. It was amazing that they even got that tournament finished given the weather they had. But since then I've had several jobs and two kids and a pandemic, and I just hadn't really traveled, back there much. So it was
Yeah.
great to be back. Chad's the best with hospitality, and it was really fun. It's fun running into you and Carl Dannenberger. He's a lot of different people.
Yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely. What did you think of the new course?
I've told a lot of people have asked me, obviously, and I feel like it is better in every way, but it also felt very like the same.
Yeah.
The tournament felt
Yeah.
the same. The surfaces are all improved. The bunkers are obviously better. It was just really cool to be back. It was a very impressive product, especially given the weather. They have the proper infrastructure now. When I was there, everything was such a struggle because we lacked some of that infrastructure. So those rainy days would have been absolute disasters for us, whereas those guys were, still producing a really good product out there. So it was fun to be back.
Memorial always reminds me kind of the Masters because it's every year. It's very similar and but it's very special every time it comes around. So it must kind of have a very similar feel, although it's not, Augusta, right?
Yeah, admittedly, I have not been to Augusta, but in my time there, which is now a long time ago, we tried to feel like we were producing a similar type of product and feel. And I know, Mr. Nicholas, to every detail with how the players are treated, to the quality of the golf course and the food, and everything is designed to be a desirable event for the players to be a part of, which I'm sure is quite similar to Augusta National. It was growing up in the Midwest. I mean, that's the mecca of golf. I grew up in Ohio, and there's no better place. No, I think when people think of Ohio golf, they probably think of Muirfield Village.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, since you kind of told us and spilled the beans, you're an Ohio kid. Why don't you go a little further and give us a little introduction, your background, and kind of how you got to where you are here, Scott?
Yeah, absolutely. So currently, I'm the director of golf course and grounds at Castle Pines Golf Club, just south of Denver. As I mentioned, I grew up in Ohio. I was born in Youngstown, Ohio. Grew up in the northeast corner of Ohio, cloud capital of the world, I think. And I grew up with my father being a golf course superintendent. Much like you, Brian. And it wasn't until I was 20 and had a failed attempt at going to pharmacy school and a couple other things that I ended up moving back home and working for my dad. And that really, ignited I grew up on the golf course. I would ride around with him in the afternoons as a kid. My grandpa retired from the steel mills in Youngstown, and I would hang out with him and we'd go play the par three. And so I kind of just grew up around golf and on the golf course. But it wasn't until I was 20 that I had the opportunity to work for my dad, and it, I just found a passion for it. And, part of it I think was the work itself. Part of it was actually connecting with my dad on a different level. And so from there, I worked for him for 3 years. I was pursuing an associate's degree in what's called electronics engineering technology. I'm not even sure what I would have done with that degree, but I liked computers and mechanics and those types of things. So, I was trying to find my way really on what my career was going to be. When I finished that degree, I enrolled at Ohio State University, and I was there for five, I guess it would have been a year, 2 years and a quarter. We were back on quarters then. Um, Simultaneously, I applied for jobs, and the first place that hired me was Muirfield Village. So I started there in the spring of 2003, working for Mike McBride and, that kind of what I'll call the old regime. So it was Mike, Bill Sanders, and Mike Tuckich, who I think is still at Pinnacle.
Yep.
And then after my first season is when Mike transitioned to work with Nicholas Design, and Paul B came in from Oak Hill. He had just hosted the PGA Championship, and honestly, him coming into Muirfield Village is really probably what changed the trajectory of my career and showed me. I spent 7 years with Paul, um, and I just learned so much there. It's what I would tell like interns coming in is I would call it the rule of three, which is that you're probably going to work 3 times as much and learn 3 times as much as any other internship, because we were really grinding it out at that time. There was a lot of infrastructure issues and different things that were going on. So, I kind of got to see that golf course transform in the way we were doing it. And that's what made it fun going back when Chad kind of did it all again, and maybe probably a better way, probably the right way, by tying in everything at the same time. But after 8 years at Muirfield Village, I moved to Chicago and I took over Cog Hill Golf and Country Club, which is we could do a whole episode on that uh, place. That's a 72-hole public facility that had hosted a PGA Tour event for 20 years. It was the Western Open, and the Western Open became the BMW Championship. So my first year there, 2011, we hosted their last BMW Championship.
Hmm.
So I spent 3 years there running 72 holes, and then was looking for something a little less crazy. As much as I enjoyed the dynamics of what was going on there was just always something going on. I felt like I wanted to try to get back in the private club world. And so I eventually got hired at Bobolink Golf Club in 2014, which is an old Charles Allison golf course on the North Shore of Chicago. Consequently, that coincided with a large winter kill event that was happening kind of simultaneous to me being hired there. And so that sort of served as a catalyst to restore the golf course to more what the Allison golf course was. So in my first 2 years, we had renovated the entire golf course. We hired Jim Urbina and worked on like a thoughtful renovation project that included irrigation, drainage, rebuilding the greens, and putting back bunkers, removing trees. We took out 3 ponds and really just kind of tried to put it back to a 1929 aerial that we had as much as we could. So I spent 8 years there, and we had accomplished a lot. Renovated the golf course, practice facility. We just broken ground on a new maintenance facility. And so I was just kind of potentially interested in finding what that next challenge might be. And a friend and colleague and really mentor of mine, Paul Vermeulen, who's with the tour, called me one day and said, "Hey, there's a potential opportunity in Denver. Would you be interested in Denver?" I said, "Well, I've never been to Denver. I don't know what's in Denver, but I'm always interested in things that are unique." And so I ended up at Castle Pines, and we hosted the BMW Championship last year. I'll have been here 3 years in July, and it's been a really, really fun place to work, and we've done a lot of cool things.
What was it like? You mentioned when Paul came in at Muirfield while you were there. Was it your second season when he came in then?
It would have been the fall of my first season.
Okay. Okay.
So I worked, one tournament with Mike, and then Paul B came in I think September of that year,
Okay.
really right after the PGA Championship when it was on the old schedule.
So was that like complete culture shock then for you guys? I mean, with you especially kind of working for your dad, working for Mike, and then you mentioned you're going to work 3 times as hard, learn 3 times as more. I mean, was it just like what is going on here as soon as he walked in the door?
It was, but I was at a point in my life and career where that's what I kind of want. I didn't even necessarily know, but that's really what I wanted was I wanted to learn as much as I possibly could. After like two, I don't want to call them fully failed attempts at previous, career paths with pre-pharmacy and electronics. I was at a point in my life where I found something that I love to do and I wanted to be the best at it. And I didn't know what that really meant, but I always wanted to try to work harder than everybody and, uh, you know, learn more and just like try to be not cutthroat competitive, but I wanted to be really good at it. And, um, Paul coming in it was really Paul and Jake Gargas, who Jake's a crooked stick. I'm sure you know Jake, Brian,
Oh yeah.
with their renovation. And, those two guys kind of came in simultaneously. And Jake and I are basically the same age. And Jake came in as the superintendent under the director. And I can remember thinking to myself, like, how is this guy the same age as me? Like, he's already, he built Sand Ridge. He graduated from ATI, I think, when he was like 19. He felt like he had 15 more years experience than me. And so I wanted that. Like, I wanted that. I wanted to understand what it took to get to that next level. And so it was an amazing time. I mean, full disclosure, I mean, it was tough. And by the end, I needed a change. But I learned so much, and I would never be anywhere close to where I am today had that event not occurred. The network, it was everything from the way the tournament was ran. So with the first tournament that I did at Muirfield Village, we had virtually no volunteers. We did that entire event in-house, which I think there was a little bit of like a badge of honor with that team. Um, but then the next year we had 60 volunteers or something like that. And it's like, wow, this is much more enjoyable. you know, I got to meet a lot of cool people. I mowed greens. I'll never forget it. My first tournament with Paul B. Um, I mowed greens with Mark he's at Wanaway in Rhode Island. Mark had worked for Paul at Oak Hill. He was at Oak Hill at the time, and I got to meet people like that and mow greens with a guy that was already on his path to be a superintendent. And so it was just a much different environment. They kept me employed in school, and they just always would find things for me to do at whatever hours I could do them, almost dark to dark, kind of like if you're willing to work, we've got something fun for you to do. I was involved with an arbor study there back, before we had a lot of technology. We'd go out and physically mark and tag trees and measure them and like just all that kind of stuff. It was amazing.
Were you part of the sod stretcher incident?
I'm proud to say I was there for the side stretcher incident. So I
Nice.
was there for a lot, a lot of funny uh, events. The same. There's a guy that we worked with named Rob Frederick. I don't know, Brian, if you've ever met Rob. Rob works for HNS Sports now, and Rob was the real prankster of the group for a long time. Um, and I mean, we had an intern that he convinced the pond on 10 was low, so that we had to fill it with our hoses. So we had a bunch of interns plugged into quick couplers, which was just like recycling water
Nice.
essentially. There's little things like that. It was a riot. It was fun.
Tell us about, taking your first big job leaving Muirfield Village. What was that like? Did you feel like you were ready and kind of have some blessing from the people around you to go on and do that?
Yeah, it was definitely full support. I mean, the common thread in pretty much every job I've had is Paul Vermeulen, outside of, the people that I actually work for. So again, Cog Hill was a BMW Championship site. They were adding somebody to run the championship course and then eventually take over for Ken Lapp, who had been their director of grounds for like 45 years, maybe 50. Um, and so it was Paul that kind of connected me with them, Paul Vermeulen. And was I ready? No. Probably not for that job, not for that place. But I was at the same time, I was ready. I was confident in my abilities, and it was a crap show probably the first 3 years, the 3 years that I was there, because it was a really old school operation and we were trying to bring it up to speed. But yeah, man, it was fun and exciting. Like I said, I was ready to. I needed a change of scenery, and I wasn't, just gonna move on for any job. But you reach that point where, 8 years, 8 tournaments. I remember thinking like, I got to get out of here and be someplace that doesn't have a tournament. And the job I got was one that had a tournament, the same year. Um, so it was fun. It was a staff of 75, and when I got there, it was kind of 75 people, just sort of, they weren't assigned to specific golf courses. So we were just kind of like maintaining the whole property in a wave. And in my 3 years there, we hired superintendents and divided the crew to kind of create divisions. So we had a group that was responsible for courses 1 and 3 that were kind of functioning as a 36-hole place where they do a lot of 36-hole outings. And then course 2 was like its own kind of unique setup and design. And so we had somebody running that with a group of people. And then Dubstred was a championship course that we ended up hiring a superintendent and kind of separating things. And so it was really fun. I mean, I learned a lot, trial by fire there. And being that it was a public golf course, it was kind of a different, I don't want to say it was less pressure, but it's different than a Muirfield Village where you have kind of a captive audience of members, and you're dealing with the public and really trying to work behind the scenes to make improvements that really the owners are going to see, but the general public may or may not recognize because they might only play it once a year, or for at the time, Dubstret was kind of like a bucket list course for people. So they'd come to Chicago and play the PGA Tour golf course and maybe never come back. So just a much different experience, which I think was really good. So going back to working for my dad a little bit, that was a small public golf course. It's a reserve run golf course in Boardman, Ohio. We had no mechanic, we had no real shop. We worked out of a little barn, and I would rebuild reels in the winter on one of the owner's kitchen counters that they had redone their kitchen, and they brought it down there because that was the workbench, right? So I kind of started there, went to Muirfield Village, and then to Cog Hill, which was definitely not reserve run, but it was somewhere in between reserve run and Muirfield Village, with maybe the resources and the amount of play that we got and the amount of things we could actually do just because we were so busy. So I'm rambling a little bit, but I really learned a lot, and it was a fantastic experience. Just some crazy. I mean, I could probably write a book about Cog Hill.
72 holes is no joke.
It was really fun. Well, 72 holes. I think we had 87 greens.
Oh my goodness! My goodness!
With practice greens, we had. What was really cool about the ownership there is this is not like a equity firm that owns a golf resort or something like that, or some rich guy that did this as a passion project. The Jemsick family runs that as that is their business, and that has been their business for a very long time. It's now run, I think, by the third generation. Catherine is the granddaughter of Joe Jemsick, who bought the courses from the Cog Hill brothers in like the 40s and expanded it to from 36 to 72 holes. But it was really cool because it was really a family business, right? It was not this big corporate type operation. So it provided opportunity to do things like, hey, I'm going to take this operation and separate it and do it completely differently. And they were really, this isn't meant to be a criticism, but they didn't really know any better because they had been so successful doing it one way for so long. So it's just really cool to kind of be a part of that. I'll always be grateful for them, giving me that opportunity to run that, run their family business. I mean, I ran those golf courses, and Ken Lapp, who I took over for, was really part of their family. He started working for Joe Jemsick when he was 12. His dad was a superintendent at Fresh Meadow, which is a place that the Jemsicks ran for a while. So like he was as much part of the family as anybody there. So, I almost feel like I was the first non-family member to have a key role there. So, I'm really grateful that they put their trust in me to do that. And it was fun, but I knew it wasn't going to be for me for the long term.
That's impressive. So you talked about working with your dad and the kind of course that was, a place where you probably need to be efficient. You're in there basically doing everything. How much did that experience getting to see every side of the operation more so out of necessity. How did that help you long term?
It's helped me tremendously. I mean, I still talk about it today because here at Castle Pines we're in operation a lot more like Muirfield Village, where we have ample resources and very high expectations, and we also have people that have only ever worked at Castle Pines, right? So if you only are experienced to that level, you don't maybe understand what it's like to have your one T-mower triplex breakdown because the steering cable broke, and you got to fix it on the hillside on the back of 14T. I got to do that stuff. I say I got to do it because I loved that, where it's like things would break, something might go wrong, and we didn't have a team of mechanics. We didn't have a lift. I would take my toolbox out there with my dad, and we'd lay on the ground and try to get it back running because it was the only machine that we had, kind of thing. And not to make it sound like a really, really low quality place, it was a pretty high quality place for what it was, what it is. Um, and so to me, like I would not do anything different with my career progression. Like I love the fact that I worked at a place like that. I remember what it's like having one fairway mower and what it's like when that mower goes down, right? And with that being said, it's fun to be at a place like this where if one fairway mower goes down, we have two extras, right? And so, but I think it's important to instill those values that, you know, most places are closer to reserve run than Castle Pines, right? And so as people come through here and they move on to different jobs, it's a lot less likely that they're going to be at a Castle Pines and then a reserve run type golf course. And so I always try to talk about things like self-reliance and getting to know equipment and understanding, that things are not disposable, and, just try to instill that fiduciary responsibility and that responsibility to take care of things, which can be challenging if you've only been at a place that has 40 golf carts and 10 fairway units and, those types of luxuries.
Is that something you do with your interns? Do you kind of get them out there to appreciate that side of it?
We've tried to really come up with ways to incorporate that. And I think it's a good friend of mine, Tyler Bloom, who I think we all know. He says if you don't schedule, it's not going to happen. So we tried to do that last year without scheduling it, and it never happened, right? So especially in a tournament year. So we've really made an effort to try to schedule those things. And now that you say that, I need to make sure I put that on the schedule because
Yeah.
before you know it, the summer's going to be over, and they'll be wondering if they ever get in the shop. But we've done it with all of our, full-time staff. We kind of had a class in the winter, went through reels, went through how to set up a grinder. Because depending on where you're from and what your background is, you may or may not have ever been experienced. You may have never touched a reel or adjusted a reel to bed knife or cut a piece of paper on a mower. Especially if you have a good mechanic at your club, it's not something that you potentially are going to do unless you are really inquisitive. So we try to kind of make it happen. It's been really fun. We did that this winter, and it's our head equipment manager, Steve Barry's been here a long time, about 30, 31 years. He had some shoulder surgery this spring. And so there was like 10 guys that were kind of jumping in, helping adjust mowers, helping Matt, our assistant, moving mowers around, just checking things out. It was kind of fun to see that because that was something that probably wasn't happening here in the past.
Scott, would you consider yourself a new school superintendent or more old school where things are a little bit run a little higher and tighter and maybe emotions are a little bit higher sometimes? Or do you find that you've kind of changed your ways a bit and or you're a little bit more adjusted now?
Leaning toward new school for sure. One of the things that I took away, basically every place I've been and every person that I've learned from, I always like to say there's two ways you can learn, right? You can learn how you want to do things, and you can also learn that maybe there's things that you had to go through that you don't want to do, or you want to try to find a better way. And I think we're all trying to find better ways to do things. I want to give my kids a better upbringing than my parents did. It's like that whole kind of mentality of trying to improve things. So I would definitely, I am not, I don't want the people here to necessarily have to go through the type of schedule that we worked during my time at Muirfield Village, which now was a long time ago, right? I want to try to find better ways, not because I don't think people are invested in what we do, or uh, maybe Phil and I can debate work-life balance one day or something, but I think it's different in each region of the country too. Like Colorado's a place where people that live here getting into the mountains and having a long weekend and exploring the outdoors is part of life here, right? So I want to make sure that we're mindful of that and we're providing those opportunities. And at the same token, I've got two young kids and I want to find what the appropriate balance is for me to be able to do my job at a high level, but also be present for my children and my wife. And so I try to be, we work when we need to work and we work a lot. Um, and we've kind of come up with this unique schedule, I think, for our turf guys that allows as good of a balance as I can come up with, which is working every third weekend. Um, and so I think it's, each generation of superintendents, I think, has improved our vocation and has improved the standing of how superintendents are viewed and greenkeepers. We've continued to become more and more professional, though at the end of the day, we're mowing grass and preparing the golf course. But um, I think the old days of like the farmer mentality, the way I think about it is, superintendents probably kind of evolved from agriculture background typically, And so as we've moved generations away from that, um, we've got kids that have grown up in metro areas that don't know what a farm is, and they want time away, but they also love the industry, but they don't want to sacrifice the entire summer and never have a day off, right? That's not a good way to go about it. So we try to do the best we can at providing people those opportunities to see the outdoors and get out of here and keep their minds fresh and really dig in when they need to and not feel guilty about being away when they're scheduled off. That's a big thing for me is your time off is your time off. And when you're here, we need you here. And that's kind of how we approach it.
So when I think new school, I also think technology. Um, when with your interests in enrolling in school is, basically, I think you said what, electrical or some type of engineering, and then also even before that, pharmacy. You've kind of got or showcased an interest in chemistry and technology. Is that something that really has just kind of become a big asset to you with that sort of interest and understanding?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm the most cutting edge, but I love gadgets and different things. And so, I mean, we've been I've probably been collecting data on greens for a decade, back to my time at Bobolink. We've got a GS3, we've got a couple different drones that do some mapping for us and different things. And, I'm really interested in robots. I think I just want to try to here's my whole view of here's what my goal is. I want to give the members the best golf course the most days of the year, right? And I got to do that within the confines of our budget. And I also want to do that while providing the best possible workplace for the people that are here, right? And so if there's technology that can help us give the members a better golf course, be more efficient with our resources, or make this job more enjoyable for the people that work here, then we're going to try to use that. And fortunately, I'm in a place that supports those types of initiatives and allows us to try things. And uh, it's that's where my brain is at all times is how can we do the least amount of work to have the best golf course, or what I mean? Um, it's not rocket science. It's we want smooth playing surfaces, right? We want the members to have a good time, and we want happy employees. And if we have all that, then it's a pretty fun place to come every day. If either of those are lacking, it starts to become less fun, right? If the golf course isn't good, members aren't happy, is a lot of pressure on us. And if the staff isn't happy, it's really hard to make the golf course good for the members. So it kind of all plays together, in my opinion.
Well, you mentioned the GS3 there. Is there anything else that you're kind of excited about? Maybe you've recently tried or you're looking to try?
I mean, the things I really, we also have turf rad sensors, which admittedly we haven't even used yet this year. We've been unusually wet for Colorado in May and the beginning of June here. Um, I'm really, really interested in that technology, and I really think, whether it's that particular device or something similar, is gonna really move the needle on kind of how we manage moisture. And when I started watering greens, we were using, we were just sticking a knife in the ground, and I still do that, right? But when I can stick a knife in the ground and then put a TDR next to it and understand what, that feeling is in my hand and start to quantify it, I feel like I can train people better and that we can be more consistent. And so then, I feel like the turf rad deal is probably like the next level of that, where you're going to potentially apply that technology, get a survey of your moisture throughout your fairways and the bulk of your golf course, and then be able to leverage technology to help dial in your irrigation system potentially, and do these different things to again to improve the conditions and then make it a better place to work because we're not searching around for dry spots on fairways with soil probes every day. So the turf red really excites me. I think that I want the autonomous robots to be better than they are right now. I think on flat land, flat ground, they do a really nice job, and they've made a lot of strides there. But our property is really slopey and hilly, and those little guys have a hard time turning on slopes. We can't seem to get them to work on anything that has a lot of slope. So, I think about sending a $150,000 rough unit around, mowing around trees and on all these slopes. And like, there's got to be a better way. And then the next thing is, mowing around the trees themselves by hand. We have like 2,800 trees on our front nine alone. Um, so, we're going to probably a 6,000 tree type property with all the pines and grass mowed out to them. So, those are the things that really intrigue me, is how can we spend less time doing things that we have to do that don't really improve the playing conditions. Like mowing around a tree is necessary, but that's not really moving the needle on the member experience. I mean, it has to be done because you don't want it to look untidy, but I'd rather have those guys, you know, figuring out a way to make the green smoother or fixing elk spots or, other things that go on here that really do affect the member experience.
Folks, before we go any further, we need to talk about Flash Weather AI. And Turf Today is brought to you by Flash Weather AI, the future of hyper-local weather intelligence. Whether you're managing a golf course, sports field, or any outdoor operation, timing is everything. Flash Weather AI uses cutting-edge AI to deliver real-time forecasts and lightning-fast alerts tailored to your exact location. No more guessing, no more surprises, just smarter decisions, faster. Learn more at flashweather.ai and take the guesswork out of your weather game. Today's episode is also brought to you by Apex 10 by Green Nature, a powerful organic soil amendment that's trusted by turf managers across the country. Apex 10 improves root development, enhances nutrient uptake, and increases stress tolerance, all while reducing the need for water and synthetic inputs. Whether you're maintaining championship conditions or just trying to get the most out of your turf, Apex 10 helps you do more with less. Learn more at greennature.life and see how Apex 10 can elevate your turf program.
I want to go back to your tournament experience, Scott. You mentioned your first tournament at Muirfield. You did it basically without any volunteers, and then, obviously from there stepped up and you guys had quite a bit. We actually had the question from Andy Johnson from the Fried Egg. Why do these courses need so many volunteers? Do you think tournament expectations have increased tremendously over the last decade, 2 decades, to where there is that necessity for all those volunteers?
Well, I think, I hear this kind of narrative that it's unnecessary and this and that. And yes, everything we do is unnecessary. It's fully unnecessary, right? But at the end of the day, you know, the way I view it, um, is these are these are television shows, right? These are television shows that are a golf competition. And we need to be prepared to make sure the television show finishes on time, right? And we need to make sure that we represent the clubs that we work at the highest possible level, right? And so, is it actually necessary for the golf competition? That's arguable, right? Is it necessary for the television show? Yes, 100%. Because we're not working within the confines of daylight. We're working in the confines of when primetime TV is for the final round on Sunday, right? And so we have to be prepared to react to weather and a host of different things, which we prepare for the worst and hope for the best. So yeah, I do think it's necessary. And the other thing I think that's important to understand is that, the I sometimes hear this volunteer, excess, we'll call it, as viewed by some as like it's a negative. But if you ask, I think anybody that gets to go to these events, this is not I mean, there may be sacrifice, but this is a fun, potentially once in a lifetime experience, right? You get to be around a lot of people working at a high level, trying to produce the best possible product we can. It's like you wouldn't host the Super Bowl on a field that's been played on that they played 10 games on the day before, right? It's the Super Bowl. So every golf tournament is a Super Bowl for us, right? We want it to be the best it can possibly be, and we want the TV show to get done on time, and we want it to be a fair, quote unquote, golf competition, right? And we want to work with the bodies, and we want to raise a bunch of money for charity, and we want the clubs to benefit. So, I think, the money that we spend to house volunteers and feed volunteers and do those different things and get uniforms and, you know, to me, that's the best part of the event is the networking, the people you meet, the experiences you can provide to individuals that may never work at a PGA Tour event, right? They may never work at a Muirfield Village or Castle Pines, but they can come here and potentially volunteer and experience something that's outside of what they do. And it's not that what we do is better, it's just different and fun, right? So why not share that with as many people as possible? Um, I mean, you want to talk about unnecessary, let's go into aim point and the data that, like let's get rid of, to me, that's unnecessary. Go play the game of golf, I think it's, I've gone through different phases of my career, right? I spent 8 years at Muirfield and a year at Cog Hill where I had, 9 tournaments in a row every year. And then I kind of graduated from that and I spent almost a decade outside of the tournament world. And I was really content with that. And I love that style of golf. I love those classic golf courses and preparing a golf course for the members each day. And I wasn't really searching to get back on a tournament site, but I was fortunate to get this opportunity to come here. And one of the best parts about it is having staff that had never hosted a tournament and achieve that goal. So, last tournament here before the BMW, I think was 2006. So other than our horticulturalist, Julia, and Steve Berry, who I mentioned, our equipment manager, there was nobody here that had hosted a PGA Tour event, right? So to be able to come in here and kind of help this group, which was really talented, get to that end of hosting that event and trying to put on the best show that we could, and then also invite, a lot of local colleagues to come in and help us and national colleagues to come in and help us and see a different place and help us put on a great event for this club. I think it's the best part about what we do. So I think the volunteer is arguably, is it necessary? I don't know. There's a lot of things we do in this world that aren't necessary, but golf isn't a necessary sport. It's a recreation, right? And the PGA Tour isn't, producing something that keeps people alive. They, there's a lot of money that's generated for charity, but at the end of the day, it's entertainment, right? And so we want to put on a great TV show, get it done on time, and we want to have a lot of people here having fun doing it. That's my view.
What a breakdown, man.
I
That was
know, right?
awesome.
That
That
was
was awesome. The
awesome.
amount of people that have talked about that over the course of the show, and that was
As
perfect because
insightful as we've heard. Yeah, that was great.
yeah, because we've heard, people say it's kind of like a summer camp. You show up, you're there for the whole week. That's all you're doing is all this stuff. It's going to be really busy. You get to meet all these people, have a ton of fun, a ton of experience, and then you're gone. And then you're home again and you're telling people about it, and it was so much fun, and you would never know what it's like because you haven't done it. And oh, it's yeah. What a breakdown, man. That was so cool.
Yeah, thanks. I think anybody that paints it in a negative light probably hasn't experienced it, or, and I love Andy. I know Andy. I love Andy. Um, but you know, what are we? I get his take on it, right? There's a lot of excess in golf, right? But there's excess at the highest level of everything, every industry, every recreation. Is it necessary to use 80 baseballs in a baseball game? No, they could go get them in the stands and reuse them, right? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's entertainment and it's fun. And so I just think, it's a fun thing to do to be able to bring a bunch of people into your shop and have them help you, but also experience something really cool.
That's awesome. So I know, a lot of the guys that we talk to, one of the things they value most is the opportunity to help grow people. And I think that's a value that you also share. And I know you've had two guys recently move on to new positions. How rewarding is it for you to work with someone and help them advance with their careers?
Oh, I mean, it's the best. It's really what we do. The way I think about it is honestly, I would not be where I am today had I not worked uh, with a group of people that valued teaching and mentoring and helping people move on to the next level, right? So, in some essence, I just feel like I owe it to the industry to try to, if I'm at a place that allows me to do that, to try to create a culture that emphasizes that. And fortunately, Castle Pines is one of those places. So I mean, it's the best. It's a great part of what we do. It's a great part of what we do. I think it's one of the most unique things about our industry is that, we want our best people to leave. I talk to other people, even in the clubhouse and, different industries, and like, why would you want your best guy to leave? And say, well, that's what it's all about. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's really great. We, just recently, one of our guys, John Calendine, got the director of agronomy at Roaring Fork Club in the mountains, which is just a fantastic opportunity. Prior to that, Brandon Wolson, who was one of our course superintendents during the BMW, got a job at Greeley Country Club on the north side of Denver. And I'm just, you know, I mean, those guys did all the work, but, I'm just proud to have been able to maybe help facilitate them finding that next step in their careers. And, the other great thing about it is it reinvigorates everybody else that's still here because it provides opportunities for growth within the team. Now we've got a bunch of different people that are going to have opportunities to take on different responsibilities and do different things and learn, get involved with budgeting, just a lot of different things. So it's the it's the best possible scenario is that a great guy moves on every year or two and we keep reinvigorating the team and gives new guys opportunity to take on responsibility and join the team full time and hopefully achieve that same goal.
So continuing on there, what message would you have for some of the younger people in this industry that are kind of working their way up or deciding if they want to go to school and
Well, it's interesting because when you know, reflecting back on what now is quite a long time ago, over 20 years, I had no intentionality with what I was doing. I worked for my dad. I went to Ohio State because it was, it's Ohio State and I'm from Ohio and they have a great turf program. I worked at Muirfield Village because they hired me first. You know, I got exposed to Paul B. Latchaw and Jake Argus and all those guys because they happened to come there. And so, it's up until the point in which I started searching for a head job, that there was almost nothing intentional about what I did. It was a little bit of luck and a little bit of hard work and some things going my way. I think it's different now, right? And so it's very cliche, and it probably every person that you ask about this says the same thing, but it's just so important to work for a mentor and not just somebody that is this isn't meant to critique colleagues that are in different positions, but as a young person, if I was giving you advice, you want to work for somebody that has the values that wants you to succeed and that sees you coming there as a young turf professional as someone that is ready to dive in and wants to learn and just can share experiences and opportunities and provide opportunities. So mentorship is really key. That doesn't mean that everybody needs to work at Oakland Hills or Castle Pines or Muirfield Village. There's a lot of good superintendents at different levels that have those same values. I just think that it's just so important to work for good people, and there's a lot of good people in this industry.
What percentage of your time do you think is managing a playing surface versus managing people?
Well, it's probably mostly people, particularly now. Maybe when I first got here, it was more true agronomic change and really focusing on how do we move the needle in the direction I'm hoping we can go to improve playing conditions. And now, almost 3 years in, I'm not saying that everything's perfect, is far from it, but we have a pretty good handle on what we need to do daily, weekly, monthly to get to the, goal of best golf course most days of the year. And so now it's kind of, particularly with a couple, really key guys moving on recently, it's how do we achieve the same, how do I let the rest of the guys find their path to find that end goal, right? I really try to not be a micromanager. The way we rotate through, we'll probably have 6 or 8 different people doing morning meetings just this season. We really try to give a lot of different people the opportunity to schedule the team and spray and be in charge of water management and all these different things. Um, and so I think I may have forgotten what your actual question is, but I just think, what was the question?
It was just how much of your time is managing a playing
Yeah,
surface
yeah,
versus managing
time.
people.
So I think it's more about trying to manage the people and give them the opportunities to grow within guidelines so that they don't fail, right? It's giving people the chance to make decisions, but not set them up for failure.
Yeah, that
Uh,
and that was really cool. I remember when I was out there last year. Is it daily or weekly that you have someone else do the morning assignments?
yeah, so we shift weekly.
Okay.
We kind of at the beginning of the season we divide into 3 teams, and we have 3 sort of main responsibilities with our turf teams. It's crew management, water management, and agronomy. And so the turf teams are 4 full-time staff and 2 interns, and with an assistant leading each of those teams. And so they rotate through a week at a time, those responsibilities. So every third week, every week a different team's running the crew. And we've got myself and Trevor, who's our superintendent, is kind of the overall management that are the consistent, presence in that situation. But it's been really fun. It's harder, I think, initially for me because you're trying to get 3 different groups to do things in a consistent way. But I think it's really fun because you get different people running morning meetings and different takes on how to get something done and maybe schedule different people. And I think it helps everyone kind of buy in at a little different level because there's a real opportunity to make impact. It's not just me telling them what to do and them assigning the names. It's kind of a conversation each day. And so it's been really rewarding to see different people grow and like I said, run morning meetings. I mean, full disclosure, when I was at Muirfield Village, I was an assistant. I never made it to the superintendent level before I left. It was typically the superintendent that would do morning assignments every day. And there was like a couple odd weekends where I was doing morning assignments and I was scared shitless. Like I had never been in front of the crew in that way, right? And so I recognize that as a shortcoming, for me. That was a little bit my own personal, thing I needed to get over. But also, I just didn't have that opportunity to get a comfort level of it there because the leaders ahead of me were so strong. And I don't blame anybody for that. But I wanted to try to intentionally make sure that a lot of different people at different levels get that opportunity to be in front of a team, think about scheduling a group versus maybe just a one-off on a weekend where you're not doing anything all that dynamic. You're just kind of getting the golf course ready. So it's been really good. It's worked well.
No, I think that's great. You're giving more people a voice, and sometimes it's hard as the assistant to get people to listen to you, right? To get people to trust you. And this is my job. I'm trying to work for these people and get the stuff done that we need to get done. So you need to listen to me, and I know that all too well. So I think that's great. You're putting more people in those management roles, and I think passing it around and having people switch things up is always great for the crew. So I
We've
wanted
all been there,
to.
right?
Oh, all been there. Yeah, it's always a tough one, especially if you are a crew member. I think we've heard a few people say that if you are a crew member and then you kind of work your way up to the assistant and you're trying to tell these guys what to do, and it's like we were just doing the same stuff together a few weeks ago or a few years ago. So
For
that's
sure.
I think doing that stuff is always great. We're one big family at the end of the day, right? We're all out there working. Doesn't matter what our job is or what we're doing. We're all working together as one big family, right?
100%.
I wanted to roll over to the restorations and renovations. You did the Bobolink Golf Club, and then you guys have been doing a little bit of a renovation at Castle Pines. So, how did those go for you, or how are those going for you?
Oh man, really good. So Bobolink it was an amazing experience. Getting hired there at the time when really the course had I don't want to say fallen into disrepair. That might be a little too harsh, but all the infrastructure was old. The irrigation system was 30 years old. The drainage was really beyond repair, and the golf course was in a floodplain. Well-intended tree plantings in the 50s and 60s had resulted in, whole corridors that had been dramatically reduced, and bunkers were kind of at the end of their useful life. And then, oh, by the way, we had a winter kill event that kind of, like I said, was a catalyst. So to me, that process was tremendous. I mean, I think it provided opportunities for me to grow and learn and see a golf course, figure out how to grow in a golf course, and put all these, having worked at Muirfield where we were a lot of times piecemealing things, we'd renovate a bunker compound or we'd, change this and that and then tie into old infrastructure and try to make it all work and seem like it's seamless. There's a lot of perils to that. And so there were a lot of lessons and things in the back of my mind where it was like, if I ever have the opportunity to do this, like I want to make sure that we, run trunk drains throughout the entire golf course so that when we do need to pick off little areas that are bird baths or, areas in the rough that maybe aren't the highest importance during the renovation, we have that opportunity. So we really tried to, the goal of that project was to set the club up for the next 100 years. It was called the Centennial Initiative. It happened to coincide with the 100-year anniversary of the club. We reopened almost 100 years to the day that the club opened in 1916. So it was a really kind of cool time to be there. And I think we in general succeeded tremendously. The golf course is great, and Mike, my assistant, took over when I left. I think he's doing really well. I still, keep in touch with Dan Waters, the pro, and a few of the members that, I became friends with and were mentors to me there. So that project was awesome. Here it's honestly been a little bit more like the Muirfield Village days where the golf course wasn't in full disrepair, but there was sort of a revitalization of it that coincided with a new chairman here at Castle Pines running the club. And what was really cool was being around Jack Nicklaus again, because Jack did design this golf course and has been engaged here for a long period of time. And so it was kind of fun to reflect on my time at Muirfield Village and that exposure, to the things he would see on the golf course and the way, he would make changes based on the playability, and see that again, a decade or more later at a different site, but just a lot of similarities and principles that continue to apply. So, here we're continuously working on infrastructure. We've got a lot of drainage to complete over the next few years and some things in the shop. But, the bunkers have all been rebuilt. The water features, all but one or two, have been redone, which is I don't even really understand what a water feature was till I came out here because in the Midwest, we have rain and streams, right? But Brian, you've been here, you've seen it. There's a lot of infrastructure that
Yes.
makes this place beautiful and creates these things. And so we have a lot of kind of underground stuff to do over the next several years and some behind the scenes things to do with our chemical storage and stuff like that. So I'm just looking forward to continue to try to make this place better and have a positive impact for the long term.
But before we let you go, do you have a favorite story on the golf course? Some funny experience or anything that you've seen over the years?
There's this odd attraction for whatever reason that during PGA Tour events, humans feel like they should use the cup for something other than golf, which happens to be a bodily function. And I don't know if I've danced around that enough, but
I think we
I
catch your
think we're all with
drift.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
for whatever reason, that's happened a couple different times. One thing that happened here, um, that I just find to be strange, and the thing that happens at tournaments is you got all these contractors and big trucks trying to get around your property, and they don't really know where they're going a lot of times. And this place in particular, if you get going down the wrong cart path, you can get into serious trouble. So we, whatever reason, it tends to involve porta potties. And so we had a porta potty truck driving up our 17th hole, which I'm just glancing at, get up on a hill, and the porta potties hadn't been cleaned. They came from Lollapalooza in Chicago, and he was up a slope he shouldn't have been, and there was some spillage, we'll say. So it's just like things like that I should start writing them down because they're so numerous. These sort of strange events that in the grand scheme of things, with tournament prep, you're just like, all right, let's go, just figure it out. Um,
Did somebody
so
yell, "Oh crap"? I hope. I mean, that would
yeah,
have been the
exactly,
line, right?
exactly. Oh crap is exactly the phrase.
That was
So
the radio call.
yeah,
Guys.
yeah. There's something about this property that Google Maps thinks that our cart path on 17 is a route that Amazon drivers and delivery truck drivers should use to get up to the neighborhood. We're within a gated community. And so we get all kinds of stuff that tries to make it through this property that shouldn't. Um, so there's other people that are probably better storytellers than me, but that's some things that I've
That was
experienced.
good.
Hmm.
I imagine most people that listen to this podcast are already in the industry. And I think, one of the things that, even when I decided to get in the business, I can remember a conversation with like one of the sales guys that called to my dad. And I said, yeah, I'm going to go to turf school. And the response was like, are you sure you want to do that? There was kind of that 25 years ago, I think there was sort of that mentality that, uh, this was a labor of love, which it is, right? But what I'm really trying to do, and what I think most of my colleagues are trying to do, is break down that kind of thought process, because I cannot think of a better job than working on a golf course. And yes, it's challenging. Yes, there's sacrifice. Yes, you don't have all your weekends off in the summer, but to anybody that's, considering golf or loves golf, like golf course maintenance can be a great career, and it's full of great people. There's a lot of fun things that we get to do. I've played golf at places that I probably never would have had access to. I've met people that I would never have been exposed to. I've traveled and done a lot of cool things related to this job. I spent time in Scotland with a turf net group, and that was another really game-changing trip in my career where I just saw golf in a different light after only really having been at like a Muirfield Village and Cog Hill type facility. But I just think it's a great career. And so if you're thinking about golf or you want to be in golf, don't undersell golf course maintenance. There's a lot of really great jobs out there, and working on a golf course can lead to other things. And it's just a really great career to be in, particularly right now. I have a friend that said to me one day that COVID was the best thing for golf since Tiger Woods, and it's kind of a funny thing to say in retrospect, but I truly think it's reinvigorated this business because it's created a lot of interest. And a lot of the guys that work for me are golf nuts. They love the game. They love to play. They love to be here, and that's what we're trying to do. So if you got questions, give me a call. I'll help you get a job somewhere.
I think we shot ourselves in the foot for a very long time where guys were talking people out of it. And my belief is that it's as challenging as you make it, right? I mean, it's obviously it's a difficult career, but if you can control the schedules, you can control a lot of the things. If you want to work 80 hours a week, you can. If you want to go to a place and work 40 to 50 hours a week, that's out there too. So it's really, kind of pick your own adventure, choose your own adventure here in this industry. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree. And don't get me wrong, there's some jobs that are more challenging, and
Sure.
I think probably the most challenging jobs are when the member expectations don't match up with the funding and the resources. That's where it really gets tricky. But man, there's a lot of good jobs at a lot of different levels, from public golf to municipalities to what we do at Castle Pines. There's just a lot of variance in what you can do, even though it's very similar. And yeah, I can't, people ask me, what would you do if you weren't working on a golf course? And I have a hard time coming up with anything, quite honestly. So I don't know if that's good or bad. It's probably bad.
A trophy husband? Just be a trophy husband?
Sure, yeah. Nurses don't get paid that much.
Yeah.
But, I better keep my job because I don't know what else.
Yeah, well, for years I've been saying we are the lucky ones because we're the ones that have found this industry and loved it. And I think there's a lot more light being shed on what we're doing. And, hopefully over the next 10, 15, 20 years, there's going to be more and more people coming into the industry and making it easier and more fun. And, from us, we can't thank you enough for coming on here and doing this, Scott. I honestly got to say for us lately, especially, I don't remember an episode going by this fast. And that's a really good thing when you're doing something like this and it's quick and we look up and it's, oh my gosh, that was an hour. That's obviously a good sign. So, like I said,
maybe it's just because I blab too much. I don't
no,
know.
it's all really good. And I gotta say, on behalf of the turf community, thank God you did not become a pharmacist. It worked out for everybody.
On behalf of my well-being, thank God. I'd be an urban pharmacy by now if I had gone that route. No, I do want to say one quick thing, which is I really appreciate what you guys do. I listen to most of your podcasts. I think, what you're doing is hopefully contributing to growing interest from people and hopefully getting people excited. I love the fact that you interview a lot of different people and at different places in their careers. So keep it up. It's a pleasure listening to you, and I really appreciate you having me on.
That was awesome. Great to have you on here. Great to see you again. Am I going to see you next week? Are you going out at all?
Man, I can't. I wish I could. I was at Muirfield this week. We've got a big member-centric week with a couple dinners at the club. I'm essentially gone from home for a couple days this week, and then I got some long weekend with the family in the mountains here in a couple weeks. So we're sending two guys out. So Trevor and Conrad will be out there helping out Mike and the 1,000 other people probably. I can't wait to watch it on TV. If you've never been there, it's an amazing golf course.
Yes, it is. It's going to be quite a show next week.
Yeah. Are you going, Brian?
I'll be there. Yep. Lacrosse tournament wraps up sometime Sunday morning, early Sunday afternoon, and come switch bags out and head straight up. So
yeah,
should be fun. See the whole crew.
Yeah, very good. Awesome.
Yeah, awesome. Great to see you, Scott. Thanks so much for joining this. This was a fantastic episode, man.
Nice to meet you, Brian. Thanks a lot.
It was great meeting you too, Scott. Keep in touch.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, we'll do. See you guys.
And now it's time for another installment of Ask the Agronomist, presented by the Andersons.
We are back with PhD agronomist Ben Pease from the Andersons. Our question today comes in from Brent Vardzen. Should I fertilize before, during, or after aerification for quickest heal up?
Brent, this is a great topic. If I can answer all of the above, if you allow me to answer all of the above, I think that's the way we'll go. That's the way we'll approach this. If there's the time, it's best to fertilize, say, 5 to 10 days before your aerification event. This is just a small spoon feeding. We're thinking a tenth of a pound to a quarter of a pound, maybe 0.3, 0.4. So not a lot, but we want to jumpstart there's some growth ahead of this large stress event. So we can jumpstart the recovery if we feed them 5 to 10 days before an aerification, really kind of get them primed to regrow. Now, when we fertilize, you might see results after 1 to 2 days with quick release, 3 to 5 with slow release. So we're thinking ahead. We don't want to do it just the day of, although moving forward, we can do it day of or right after aerification. That's a great time. If you've got a larger prilled fertilizer or a fertilizer with soil amendments, you can get those soil amendments into those aerification holes. But usually we're doing a greens grade if we're talking greens aerification here. So again, if we're doing a before fertilization, during fertilization, and again, that's a small application as well, 0.1 to 0.2 pounds of nitrogen with quick and slow release. For these types of situations, I really like Contact DG 949 or 1189. They both got some phosphorus in it to help jumpstart some root regrowth. They're not very high in nitrogen, so you can still use enough product, but not put out a lot of nitrogen. 1189 also has humic acid in it, so that's a great soil amendment to apply at that time. So those are your befores and your durings. I'll also think about an after. So 7 to 10 days after aerification, we can do another little spoon feeding. Again, those same ones are great, 949, or one that's really popular is our Genesis RX 575 as a greens grade. That works great around aerification timeframes. 18918 is a great option for the post application. So a lot higher nitrogen. You can maybe put a little more out and get a longer release out of that one as well. So I realize that, if you're going to fertilize a week before, add aerification, and then, a week after, that's a pretty big time commitment. So I suppose if I were to prioritize, I really like the before and the during, and the after. If you really want to split your total nitrogen into 3 applications, you can add that after. But in my experience and agronomically speaking, the before and the during are probably the biggest ones that are going to make sure you heal up quickly and effectively.
I love it. I was really interested to hear about that one because there's, budgets and crews could limit what you're able to do with that. So it's important to know when it needs to go down, and if you have the resources, hey, make sure it's always readily available, right?
Yep. Keep some fertilizer available for these aerification events. Yeah, budgets and time and labor are always a big factor, but like I said, that before and the during, or if you're really strapped for labor, I would go with that during time frame, or the right after your aerification, after you sand the greens, drag everything in. Then you put your fertilizer out and water it all in, especially if you've got a Contact DG type fertilizer that's going to get into that canopy and not get picked up by mowers as well. So
sounds like a great strategy. Thanks a lot for this, Ben. This wraps up another Ask the Agronomist segment featuring Dr. Ben Pease, presented by the Andersons.
How good was that?
Man, very, very good. And we said at the beginning of the show, he's a guy that's been recommended by a bunch of people that have come on and want to hear him. So there's obviously a reason why people wanted to hear from him, because I was hanging on to most of what he was saying. A lot of times when you do interviews, you try and listen to the person, and then you think of a question so that you can kind of ask a question as it's coming up. There were times he was speaking and I was so involved with what he was saying, I wasn't even paying attention to what I was supposed to be doing.
I know. That's
So,
same
that's
thing.
really
I found
good.
myself doing the same thing. I'm sitting here listening to his answers, and then he's like, I don't even remember what the question was, but I'm like, I don't either. I'm just listening to you.
Yeah, like you just keep talking about what you were talking about. It's fine.
Oh, that was awesome. What a good interview. Great
Yeah,
guy.
great guy and busy guy, and obviously very invested.
Yeah.
We didn't even talk about, he has a family and his kids come out to the tournaments and to the course and stuff with him. So
Yeah.
maybe a
Yeah.
guy we'll have to bring back. I know we say that often, but as we
Yeah.
go here and we come up on 100 episodes, we've talked to a lot of different people from all over the world. And I used to say, are we going to be able to do enough episodes? And you used to tell me, man, there's more than enough people in this industry to be able to interview. And I feel like we're just scratching the surface.
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah. 100 episodes where, yeah, there's 16,000 golf courses in the States. I don't know how many you guys have in Canada. There's a lot of people we can get around to.
There's a lot of people, yeah.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
certainly want to, right? There's so many amazing
Yeah.
stories out there and so many
Yeah.
unique takes that we'd love to hear. And that, it's funny how I learn something every episode, and I'm
Yeah.
still learning in this industry. I was texting my old superintendent yesterday about something about accessories and about tools and stuff. And he texted me back. He's like, I told you about this in our first year. And I was like, we probably did, and that was something I missed. And there's just so much information. And, I learned it yesterday and I'll never forget it. And it's cool how we're always learning stuff and there's always stuff coming up. And, a show like this can just continue to keep educating people and keep adding tips and tricks and experiences to what we do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's great to talk to people at all different levels, and at the end of the day, they're all doing the same thing, right? You can always learn something from somebody. So it's we have the greatest job in turf. There's no question.
That's right. That is right. I love it. There's nothing beats the golf course. No
Yeah.
bad days.
Well, I just mean us, you and
Oh,
I.
us. Yeah. Well, we do
Yeah,
too.
we
Yeah.
get to tell the stories, man. We get to help people shed some light on this stuff. Spread the
Mhm.
word of what's going on out there. It's gosh, just
Yeah.
reflect on 100 episodes. I mean, how many people have you talked to that, like Scott was saying, this business has given him the opportunity to play courses he never would have ever imagined, has met people he never would have thought. I mean, that's where we are, right? I mean, like
Mhm.
we've been able to talk to people all over the world, never
Yeah.
in my wildest dreams would I think I'd be talking to guys from Australia, or to the guy that's getting ready to host the Open Championship over in Northern Ireland. Like, it's just, we've got the greatest gig on earth. There's no question.
100%. And I
Yeah.
remember when I left the golf course to pursue Turf Today full time and to kind of do this full time, I was 10, 11 months before I found myself back at the course. Like I
Yeah.
couldn't do it. Like I needed to be out there. I needed to be on the golf course, driving the golf cart around, being a part of the crew, being back in that. And I don't know if it's something I'm ever going to be able to give up, honestly.
Yeah.
Like it might just
So
be
just
a
wait
part-time
till you
job.
get too busy.
Maybe there is that, but if it's something you can
gotta
do
be getting there.
part-time, yeah. Yeah.
All right, man. Have a great weekend. Good luck. Hopefully you get good news on the house, and we'll talk soon.
Okay. Have a
All right, man.
safe trip.
Yeah. Thanks, buddy.
Okay.
See ya.
Have a good one.
You too.
That'll do it for another episode. Thank you to Scott Pavalko for joining us, making time in his busy schedule. Huge shout out to all of our sponsors for all of the support they give us. Could not run the show without you. We'll see everybody next week. Keep those reels sharp. Got a fun one coming to you.